In the house, it is the one, the only, Colonel Stephen Maxwell. Good morning, sir. Man, that coat looks good against that backdrop there. You dressed for the occasion.
Well, thank you, Paul. I really appreciate that.
All we need is a logo on that right there, and we got it made in the big chair. So, but, Colonel, thank you for showing up. Appreciate it very much. I'm just reading some stuff on here. And sometimes I don't think people are, I don't want to scare people, but my God, if you've got a kid out there who is on his or her own, going to college or just breaking away from the house, teenagers spending more time out there, you got to talk to them. The number one thing that perplexes me as a boomer, where I hear somebody said, well, they overdosed, but they did not know that this could be in there. I don't understand how they could not know it. I do understand that we don't have a large audience of 13 to 18 years old in talk radio, but and that's a shame, and that's their loss. For the first time in history in our country, we have surpassed 100,000 overdoses in just a 12-month period. Of that, and this is February numbers here of this year, 64,000 of that 100,000 were due to fentanyl. And the leading deaths between 18 years old and 45 years old, from my understanding, we're losing about 175 people a day who are dying from this on overdoses. What's your thought?
Well, Paul, you know, we're in an era in society as it relates to the drug culture that science and technology is layered into it, and it is constantly evolving from where it was in evolution, you know, every year or every other year. Now it's every single day. When we talk about drug-related overdose deaths and more than 70% of them being associated with fentanyl, we are constantly having new synthetic opioids come online daily. Right now, you know, we're talking about carfentanil. We're talking about metonitazine. We're talking about protonitazine and isotonitazine. And whereas fentanyl may be a 10 on a scale of 1 to 10 in potency, these drugs are beyond that. They're even more potent than fentanyl. These drugs are being used as a cutting agent, a lacing agent. They're sold as counterfeit pills. We even have rainbow fentanyl that's come online right now. And, you know, these drug cartels, they're familiar with the statistics, okay, that the CDC puts out through SAMHSA. And according to the SAMHSA 2019 and 2020 report on health and drug use in this country, each day 670 adolescents initiate opioid prescription drug misuse. In addition to that, we've got in excess of 55 plus almost 60 million people in this country who were identified as having used an illicit drug in the previous year.
I go back and look at the states that have decriminalized this, and Oregon was one of them, and crime is up like 300%. Drugs are out of control. People are on the streets. You can't tell the difference between someone who originally was mentally ill or someone who's been driven through mental illness from the degradation of the mind from these drugs. It is so sad to see what is going on in some of these cities. And it just seems to me every single time a new law or rule or regulation that is imposed, it's counterproductive. I mean, you look at what's going to go on in Chicago at the beginning of the year on the decriminalization of some of these things. And I don't know how that city is going to survive.
Well, I will tell you, here in the state of Mississippi, Mississippians should feel encouraged. In this, most previous legislative session, Governor Reeves, working with our group and body of legislators, gave us two pieces of legislation that helps law enforcement working in partnership with our judicial entities to broaden the pathway of holding people accountable who knowingly, intentionally, and willingly sell, transfer, and deliver fentanyl. And that is Parker's Law. In addition to the fact that we have the Victoria Huggins Peel Press Act, those two statutes, that were provided to us by our legislature and Governor Reeves leading the way and leading the challenge, signing them into law, married very well with a previous piece of legislation, that we got, which was the Good Samaritan Law. Now, here's the impact of that, Paul. In the past 2 years, we've had more than 1,000 Mississippians die as a result of drug-related overdose death. From January to July of this year, we've had more than 7,000 non-fatal drug-related overdose deaths. Now, The encouraging thing about that is that they were non-fatal.
Wait a minute. Non-fatal overdose deaths.
Well, non-fatal overdoses that did not result in death.
Okay, I got it.
Yes, sir. And the encouraging thing about that is that they were non-fatal, and that's as a result of the robust, demand reduction effort that we have, moving to try to educate the public about, these synthetic opioids and just how potent they are, working in partnership with other agencies to make, the naloxone available through the brand name Narcan and Caloxado, and these two additional pieces of legislation that we have.
It was that many non-fatal across the entire state in what period of time?
From January of this year through July.
Jeez. Let's do this. Let's take a virtual tour. You and I, we get in the car, and you as the director of the Mississippi Bureau of Narcotics, we drive down to the border. How much more difficult is your job now than it was, let's say, 10 years ago if you were in that position?
Well, Paul, I'll tell you, Governor Reeves has highlighted this. And if you look at the, Customs Border Patrol statistics from January, again, through July, those statistics indicate to us that there was more than 2 million, unusual contacts of citizens who are undocumented that have attempted to enter into this country. Now, that is roughly about 68% of our state's population, and that's more people than the population of 14 of our 50 states. So that gives you an example of how the problem has been exacerbated as a result of the issues on our southern border.
And we have no idea where these people are right now. We don't even know where the ones in Martha Vineyards are going to wind up. So
exactly.
We don't know.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
How much of that do you think is coming in from the border into the state of Mississippi?
Well, based on the robust interdiction efforts that we have working in partnership with other Mississippi Department of Public Safety agencies, the amount of seizures that we make, the amount of seizures that we see, local law enforcement agencies are making on our interstates and our highways, that gives us an indication of what we're potentially missing. And, as you and I talked before, the coca plant is not cultivated here in Mississippi. The poppy plant's not cultivated here in Mississippi. And you cannot import these precursor chemicals to manufacture these synthetic opioids, not only here in the United States, but in Mississippi. All this is done just south of our border by Mexican drug cartels.
If we had a secure border, if it was, regardless of who the political party happens to be, but if we had a secure border the way it should be, how much do you think that would help the situation? Because I don't watch a lot of this to catch a smuggler and things like that at the airports. And these people are doing everything they possibly can. It looks like the weak point, by far, is going to be at the border. It seems that if we could correct that and do what we're doing at the airports, it would improve the situation and saves lives immensely.
Well, Paul, I will tell you, again, as Governor Reeves has highlighted, we don't have to look very far. All we have to do is go back into the previous administration when President Trump was in office. And what we saw then is that we saw a tightening of enforcement at the border, and we saw, fewer numbers of individuals crossing that border, entering into the country. And here's what we don't know. We don't know that when people cross that border, what they're bringing into this country inside of their bodies, or what they're bringing into this country on their bodies, or in bags, so forth and so on, that they may be carrying with them.
I got a couple of other questions for you, and that's Colonel Stephen Maxwell, Director of Mississippi Bureau of Narcotics. The budget requests are coming up. What do you need? Let me go to Washington just a second here with KJP.
These vulnerable migrants were reportedly misled about where they were headed, told they would be headed to Boston. These are the kinds of tactics we see from smugglers in places like Mexico and Guatemala.
So now those two governors are smugglers, and that has not made either one of them happy. We'll talk more coming up next. Sticking by for a second segment here, Colonel Stephen Maxwell, who's Director, Mississippi Department of Narcotics. The budget hearings are coming up. The situation in narcotics getting worse. What do you guys need as far as that bureau?
Well, Paul, I'll tell you, Commissioner Tyndall, working in conjunction with Governor Reeves in partnership with our legislature, they've done a really good job of ensuring, that our budget, fits the needs as the drug culture constantly evolves. And Commissioner Tyndall, has a goal of increasing our workforce power. He stated that he'd like to see us up to 150 agents. And, the technology, that we're using today is much far advanced than what we were using 20 years ago. So we want to continue to invest in our technology infrastructure and broaden that platform, as well as our intelligence base as well.
Where do you get, how many agents do we have now?
Right now we have 91 sworn agents, to include myself. We are on the cusp of starting an academy, and we hope to add to our ranks once that academy is done in the next couple of months.
What are you looking for? How many people are we talking about looking at job opportunities there?
So we'll probably add about 14 to 15 agents to our ranks statewide.
This is what we have. We have, is that 90 men and women on the road there, or it's not office personnel, is it?
Well, it's 91, including, those that function in a supervisory role.
Yeah.
And
I'm talking about how many sniffing dogs and how many people are out there checking on interstates and things such as that.
Well, we don't have, a canine program just yet, but, we're exploring the possibility.
We don't have a canine program?
Not in the Mississippi Bureau of Narcotics. The Mississippi Highway Patrol has a very, very, very effective canine program.
Okay.
But Commissioner Tyndall has that as a part of the next phase of, the evolution of our agency to implement a canine program. And we've probably got on the streets right now, working drug investigations. It's probably about 75% of that 91 agents.
You ever get any calls from people watching these shows saying, all right, look, we have a package that's coming in and we're going to watch it and track it, and it's coming into Tutwiler, Mississippi, and you guys follow up on that one?
Well, I can tell you, the investigations that we work are very broad.
Not to pick on Tutwiler, by the way.
They're very broad, sweeping, and unique in nature. Yeah. And, we work really well with our sheriff's departments and police departments, and we do, get involved in situations that we come in contact with people by way of them, having illicit substances delivered to them by way of the mail carry system.
Let me ask you this, because you see it every single day and you get reports too. Just give us an idea. How is this showing up? What color pills? Are there any markings on them? If a mom and dad happen to run in to see some of this, at least, is there any commonality about it? I guess I'm searching here, but are they, is there any commonality that we could point to when we see these things? The
first thing that parents should do is that if there is anything that looks like or resembles a medication in their child's room, backpack, purse, or car, and they don't have a prescription for that, that's a red flag. However, with the science and technology, these drug cartels have gotten so good at manufacturing these pills to some professional pharmacologists, you just cannot tell the difference. And so when you see something, that raises a concern, parents should act on it immediately, particularly if their child does not have a prescription for a specific drug or any drug that looks like anything that they do have a prescription.
We've arrived to the point where you almost need a lock and key, not only for your handgun, but for your medicine cabinet at your house now. You have no idea what's going on. Because I've seen pictures of these, and even the logo on there is, you can't tell it apart.
Absolutely.
They've become that sophisticated.
Absolutely. The majority of the 670 adolescents, as reported by SAMHSA, that initiate opioid prescription drug misuse, they retrieve those drugs from a home medicine cabinet or medicine keeping space that their parents have prescribed to them. So you're exactly right, Paul.
Colonel, do you have any stats on the demographics? I know that college towns are number one is where this goes a lot of times, but it's not exclusive to that.
No, it's not, Paul. And so according to, again, the 2020 data from the SAMHSA, survey on health and drug use, Americans age 12 and older, age 12 and older were identified as having used an illicit substance in the previous year. 12 and older, Paul, and that's all demographics. And, from 2015 through 2020, the CDC reported an increase in drug-related overdose deaths among all demographics in this country. So it's affecting all of us.
Adjusting for population, and I'm not sure if you've seen this stat, but in states that have had let's just say medical marijuana for several years, is the problem of illegal drugs better or worse?
Well, so, the use of illicit drugs, has been here for quite some time. And the drug culture has constantly evolved, and so has society. And I think what we have to do looking forward is we have to continue to look at the data. We have to continue to monitor, how it's going to impact society. And I think when you move from one state to the next, all states are unique because, its population density is different, and its population with regards to, the culture of that state is different. Yeah. And so we have to just look at the data and see how it's impacting, the citizens of each state.
I think I asked you this last time, but we're in the official fall of the year now. Medical marijuana in retail shops are going to be out there before we know it, within a matter of months. Probably in a matter of weeks. I'm not sure exactly with the exact thing. But do you have your rules and regulations within your employees concerned, or some of what they're going to be able to do out there? Is all that just a work in progress?
Well, so for us, Paul, we're going to continue down a thoroughfare that we travel every single day, and that is, for individuals who violate our state's Uniform Controlled Substance Act, those are the individuals that we're going to be focused on.
But if they do have a card, they better have that card with them in the vehicle if there's some marijuana with them.
Well, the legislature's intent as it relates to the medical marijuana program was to provide a thoroughfare for Mississippians who, in consult with their doctors, making a choice to use that as a medicinal option, that, they have the ability to do that. But what it does not do is it does not legalize, the illicit cultivation of marijuana, the sale or possession of it.
But the one question I always get is, if I have a doctor's prescription and I for marijuana, and I could do it through a vape or smoking, and I happen to be in the car parked on the side of the road in a legal parking place, and I'm stopped, am I committing a violation?
Well, I would encourage anyone, that has a prescription, not just for marijuana, but, for any prescription drug, particularly Schedule 2s, 3s, and 4s, that if they have that medication on them, that they're able to prove to law enforcement, should they come in contact with law enforcement, that they're in possession of it legally.
Yeah, and be a lot better just to do it at home if possible.
Oh, well, absolutely, and especially not operating a motor vehicle.
Well, that's true. That's true. But even as a passenger in the vehicle, I think if you're smoking, it might be a good idea to be alone, but not be in your car. All right, anything else we need to talk about, sir? I mean, because it's a subject that's not going to go away. We did this with the opioid, and the bad thing about this, it seems like, for about a year and a half or 2 years, we were getting a grip nationwide and in the state. And then before that, it was methamphetamines with the Sudafed situation. But it's always something.
Well, I think the critical piece of this, Paul, is continuing to work to inform and educate the public. And that's what we're doing right now in partnership with the Mississippi Department of Mental Health, Mississippi Public Health Institute, First Responders of Mississippi, and just putting parents in a position where they can make informed decisions. I spoke with a school board district member recently, and she was telling me about a middle school student who basically advised the administration of that school that, hey, look, we're already addicted with respect to fentanyl. You all need to focus on the kids in elementary school. And so we've got to go as far upstream and attack this problem, through educating the next generation of kids.
Thank you for leaving us on that note. Is Colonel Stephen Maxwell. Colonel, thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Look forward to the next visit.